The story of Apple, from a garage to global greatness. Apple's story is the ultimate underdog to superstar tale, filled with drama, innovation, wild ideas, and even a little heartbreak. It all started back in 1976, when two tech geeks, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, teamed up to change the world. Oh, and there was a third guy, Ronald Wayne, who dipped out early, and probably regrets it to this day. Humble beginnings, the Apple I and Apple II. Picture this, Jobs and Wozniak working out of a garage, building the first Apple computer, the Apple I. It wasn't much to look at, just a motherboard, but it was a start. They sold a few units to hobbyists, but the real magic came in 1977 with the Apple II. It was sleek, for the time, had color graphics, and ran VisiCalc, the first spreadsheet program. That little piece of software convinced businesses that computers weren't just for nerds, they could actually be useful. The Apple II turned Apple into a real company, and by 1980, they went public. Suddenly, Steve Jobs and Woz were rich, but success wasn't going to be smooth sailing for long. Mac attack, the rise of the Macintosh. By the early 80s, Jobs had big ideas, and one of them was the Macintosh. Before that, Apple had tried, and failed, with a pricey computer called the Lisa. But the Mac? It was different. It had a mouse, a graphical user interface, GUI, and a vibe that screamed cool. It was introduced with the now legendary 1984 Super Bowl commercial, which made people feel like they were part of a tech revolution. The Mac wasn't an instant smash hit though. It was innovative but expensive, and Apple's rivals, especially IBM and the growing Microsoft, weren't making life easy. Behind the scenes, things got messy. Jobs clashed with Apple's CEO, John Sculley, and in 1985, he was pushed out of his own company. Yep, they kicked out the guy who started it all. Apple without Jobs. The wilderness years. After Jobs left, Apple kind of lost its way. Sure, they came out with some cool stuff, the PowerBook laptops and the Newton PDA, an early, clunky version of what we'd later call a tablet. But nothing really stuck. Meanwhile, Microsoft's Windows was eating Apple's lunch, and by the mid-1990s, Apple was struggling to stay relevant. It was even on the verge of bankruptcy. The comeback kid, Jobs returns. Enter 1997. Apple was desperate, so they bought Next, the company Jobs had started after leaving Apple. And just like that, Jobs was back in the driver's seat. First order of business? Simplify. Apple was making way too many products, so Jobs slashed the lineup and focused on just a few key projects. One of those projects was the iMac, launched in 1998. Remember those colorful, bubbly computers? The iMac wasn't just functional, it was fun. It screamed, "Hey, this isn't your boring beige PC." People loved it, and suddenly, Apple was cool again. Hello, iPod, the start of the i era. Jobs wasn't just about computers. He wanted to shake up other industries too. In 2001, Apple introduced the iPod, and boom, the way we listen to music was forever changed. No more lugging around CD cases. Now you could carry 1,000 songs in your pocket. Pair that with the iTunes Store in 2003, and Apple wasn't just selling gadgets, it was selling the soundtrack to your life. Revolutionizing phones, the iPhone arrives. If the iPod was a game changer, the iPhone, launched in 2007, was a full-blown revolution. Think about it. Before the iPhone, smartphones were clunky, confusing, and mostly used by business types. The iPhone changed all that. It had a sleek design, a touchscreen, and an app ecosystem that let you do almost anything with a tap. The iPhone didn't just make phones better, it turned them into mini-computers. Suddenly, you could text, surf the web, take photos, play games, and even order pizza, all from your pocket. It's no exaggeration to say the iPhone changed how we live. Beyond phones, Apple diversifies. The iPhone wasn't the end of Apple's big ideas. In 2010, they dropped the iPad, which was basically a giant iPhone, without the phone part. People weren't sure what to make of it at first, but it quickly became a hit, especially for reading, gaming, and watching Netflix. Then came the Apple Watch in 2015, bringing fitness tracking and notifications to your wrist, and AirPods in 2016, which turned wireless earbuds into a must-have accessory. Apple wasn't just making gadgets anymore, they were creating an entire ecosystem. Everything worked together seamlessly, from your MacBook to your iPhone to your Apple Watch. The Tim Cook era, steady growth in services. In 2011, Steve Jobs stepped down as CEO due to health issues, and Tim Cook took over. Jobs passed away later that year, leaving behind an incredible legacy. Under Cook's leadership, Apple kept growing. The focus wasn't just on hardware anymore. Services like Apple Music, iCloud, Apple Pay, and Apple TV Plus became big moneymakers. Apple also started making its own chips, like the M1 and M2, which gave its devices even more power and efficiency. And let's not forget the company's push into AR/VR with products like the Apple Vision Pro, announced in 2023. Apple was showing the world it wasn't done innovating. The first trillion-dollar company. Apple didn't just succeed, it dominated. In 2018, it became the first US company to hit a $1 trillion market value. By 2023, that number had tripled. It's hard to overstate just how big Apple has become. Its products aren't just tools, they're cultural icons. Caring about the planet and its wallet. In recent years, Apple has made a big deal about sustainability. They're using recycled materials, cutting carbon emissions, and aiming to make their entire supply chain carbon neutral by 2030. Sure, some people say it's just good PR, but hey, it's a step in the right direction. Apple's legacy. Think different. So, what makes Apple so special? It's not just the gadgets, although those are pretty awesome. It's the philosophy behind them. Apple has always been about making technology simple, beautiful, and, above all, personal. From the Macintosh to the iPhone, the company has redefined industries and reshaped how we interact with the world. And the best part? Apple's story isn't over. Who knows what they'll come up with next? One thing's for sure, the world will be watching.